Hey friends, welcome to another amazing training inside Kareen.club. I'm really excited about this training because it has been highly sought after. The basics of credit and understanding the 5 factors of credit and how you can really truly leverage this information. Guys, this training is provided to you, of course, by Multiply. And as you can see, it says Multiply with the heart in there. Let's dive deep and get into it. All right. We're seeing a pie chart on this screen. And with the pie chart, I always like to start at the very top. Okay. When you're looking at the sort of the ingredients of your credit and your credit score. And we're talking about FICO score. We're not talking about your credit karma because your credit karma does not bring you good karma. Credit karma is basically just a rough estimate. It's called the Vantage 3.0. So it's not as good as a FICO score. FICO 8 score is essentially what the bank looks at whenever you ask for funding, you apply for a mortgage, you apply for credit cards or any sort of credit facility. This is where the rubber meets the road in the FICO 8 score. So number one, the largest heavy weight on your credit scoring system is your payment history. We all know that when you have just one late payment in your credit history, it will impact, because as you could see, it's 35%. It will impact your credit score. And the problem with the late payment is it can only be healed over time. It cannot be healed overnight. So the thing about credit is you have to season certain things that happens in your credit profile. And by the way, it's not just about your credit score. It has everything to do with your profile, essentially if this was your medical record, it has nothing to do with your blood pressure and all the numbers that you need to know, cholesterol, etc. It has everything to do, you know how they ask for your background and history of your mom, your dad, your uncle, your grandfather, if there's ever been any sort of health issue. It's the same thing with your credit score. It's not just always about the number, but it has everything to do about how long you've had credit, how many lates do you have, how many derogatories do you have on your credit profile. It's about your profile. Again, it's like the equivalent of your medical record. It's not just about your numbers, but it has everything to do with your past history. So remember that. But the biggest factor of your FICO score is 35% payment history. Guys, remember that when we know these things, that means we can use it to leverage for the better. We could use it to leverage in our lives. We can make our lives better with this information. So make sure that you pay your bills on time. And if you don't have a system to pay your bills on time, I'm going to tell you the iPhone. I'm showing you the iPhone. There it is. Your iPhone notes, you can have, like myself, I have a monthly bill iPhone notes, and I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 until the 31st of the month. And whatever it is due every single time. I constantly monitor, okay, what's coming through. The other system you can do is automatic payment. All right. Automatic payment can save you a lot of credit headache because all you have to do is automatic payment on minimum payment. And then you can just go to the back end of that. When you look at your iPhone notes of when these bills are going to be due, you can just go in the back end and then just pay it off. Okay. Because sometimes, and I'm telling you this because I used to be this version, you don't have a lot of money in the bank to always be paying off your bills. Okay. So you want to just like operate at the very bare minimum, but you do not want to be late. So if you must operate in the very bare minimum, but never be late, because it's a lot harder to fix something that's already marked on your credit and your payment history has a late or has a derogatory. As you can see, one of the biggest things that we do around money and credit is organization. Use your smartphones for smart things and use it to organize your financial life. Period, point blank, end of story. Number two largest factor is the amounts that you owe. This is what we call the percentage utilization. For example, if you have a $10,000 access to credit cards, and I say that access to credit cards because of the fact that you could have 5 different credit cards with $2,000 each of credit limit, and your total access is $10,000. Your credit profile is not going to look at just the one card. It's going to look at everything as a whole as your total access. So in this example, if you have 10% access to, let's say, credit cards, the secret sauce is that you need to owe 30% or less. So in this example, we have $10,000 access to credit cards. We need to just cycle $3,000 every month and pay it off every month. One thing that I can tell you guys that I've learned in my financial journey that I learned the hard way, because remember, I learn everything the hard way, so you don't have to, so you can learn from me. So one thing is for sure is that if I don't pay it off, it's going to incur interest, and interest can get you in big trouble. So try your hardest not to do that. This is why organization and really being responsible with your money can really benefit you in the long run, because it gives you that momentum. It gives you a lot of wins, and you're like controlling your finances and you're controlling your future. Because remember, if you can control your finances, you can control your future that leads to your financial freedom. Remember that. So you need to stay within 30% or less on your utilization percentage with that example. Ideally, just like myself and many other people that has really mastered their money and really mastered their credit, ideally, you want to remain below 5%. This is how you can achieve a higher credit score, when you remain below 5%. And we're going to talk a lot about these things in our future trainings, because we only have 10 to 15 minutes together in every single training. But I always go over and give you guys more, because it's just from my heart. As you can see, all the hearts that's above this slide. And that is for a reason, because it constantly reminds me, if you've heard my story before, constantly reminds me of my mom. And the more I see it, the more it reminds me to never be mediocre. All right, the next one is length of credit history. Now, Karine, is there anything I can do with length of credit history? There's really not much you can do, because the word length, you can't shorten it, right? It's just about the time that you put into your credit history, which means if you're a young individual, you need to start as soon as possible, as soon as you're 18 years old, okay? I even add my kids as 13-year-olds. As soon as they turn 13, I add them to our credit cards. Just be careful, moms and dads. You don't want to add them if you have not mastered your money game yet, in your credit card game, in your credit game, only because it can hurt them if it doesn't benefit them. If it doesn't benefit them, don't do it. Please be a responsible parent, okay? Now, if it benefits them, it kickstarts their credit journey, and it starts building relationships with the financial institution that you added them. Now, they are not legally able to sign any contract when they're under 18. So technically, they don't own your credit card. Therefore, the financial services don't necessarily recognize them as it's their own account, but they can kickstart their credit history, because remember, it's about the length of your credit history. So remember, in this particular one, the 15%, you don't want to add your kids if it hurts them. You only really want to make sure that as a parent, you have mastered this credit game, the money game, and the financial game, in order for your children to benefit from you adding them to your credit card, so they can kickstart their length of history. Because the sooner you start your credit history and your credit profile, the longer the length will be, right? Because listen, if you turn 30 or your kids turn 30 and you start them at 20, that means they only have 10 years under their belts. But if you started them at 13, it gives them a leg up. It gives them 17 years with that same exact example. So I'm going to move on to types of credit. And this is where, sometimes this is actually where sometimes you feel like, you know what, I pay my credit cards every single month. How come my score is not really improving? And this could be that little thing that's like nagging your credit score and keeping it low only because you have one type of credit card. There's some people out there that's paid off their mortgage, and mortgage is a term loan. It's not an open line of credit. You must have a lot of different trade line mix in your credit, the types of credit that you have. So if you've already paid off your mortgage, then you don't have a term loan, and it's going to kind of slow down the growth of your credit score and your credit profile. Now, are we going to worry too much about it? I would say not really, because 10% out of 100 is really not that much, but 10% is still 10%. So if you want to achieve a perfect score, you want to pay attention from 35 down to 10%, even if that's just 10% weight, because that is how you can achieve the bragging right of having a perfect score or an almost perfect score. New credit is 10%. These are some of the trade lines that you may add in your credit profile that's brand new. Yes, there is, again, nothing you can do about it. You can't speed it up and make them older and what we call seasoned accounts onto your profile. You just have to go through the process. This is where we really can strategize one-to-one to make sure that this is something that you are paying attention to, because you don't want to keep applying for things. Because here's what happens. When you keep applying and you get very desperate, the other bank, this is what they do. They cheat. They look at your credit report. And if they see that you've been declined many times in the recent time, they're going to question, why is this person applying for too much new credit? And why did that other financial institution decline them? Maybe I should decline them too. And you're going to continue to get declined. So remember, guys, inquiries weighs 10% on your credit. That's the new credit. And under the new credit are the inquiries. We call that your bullets, right? We do not want to waste your bullet. And if you are trying to improve your credit game, if you're really wanting to customize your credit game, talk to me. I'm going to share in the link in the bottom of how you can book a one-to-one with me, because again, these types of lessons are delivered to you every other week, but you may have a very different situation and you may want to like really strategize of how you can make sure that everything is customized to you. And that's when we can upgrade to a one-to-one session. And I'm going to share my one-to-one session link right here on the resources underneath. Just make sure you review the resources underneath. All right, that's it. Payment history is 35%, amounts owed 30%, length of credit history is 15%, new credit is 10%, and types of credit is 10%. Make sure you're taking notes and make sure that you apply this to your life, because remember, it's all about doing the work, right? All right, your score can range from 300 to 850. Okay, we have heard from our friend Credit Ninja that she has almost a perfect score of 850. I don't have a perfect score of 850, but I do have above 800. A score between 300 and 600 is subprime. Subprime means it's less favorable. A score between 601 to 660 is near prime, and anything above 661 is prime. Now, listen, there's a lot of different measurements out there, but I like to just dumb it down and simplify, because personally, that's how I learn quick, is to really dumb it down and personalize it and really simplify it, because everything is so confusing already out there. And if I make it even more confusing, you're going to get paralyzed and you're going to go into paralysis analysis, and we don't want that to ever happen. Okay, generally, prime scores allow you to get better rates when borrowing. This is why we need to get to our prime score. And prime score in this example, while 661 says it's prime, it's really not super prime. You want to get to the super prime level, which is above 700 and even better above 800. Okay, super duper prime. You can get credit score from a credit bureau, and almost all lenders use FICO score. And I'm going to share some resources again underneath to make sure that you have some resources that you can tap into, because it's all about getting it done and learning. Okay, here's the deal. When I give you the resources in the bottom, click on it, go to it, grab your credit report. If you want, I can also give you access to your credit report, your FICO score, not your Vantage 3.0 that you get from Credit Karma, for $1 for 7 days. And here's why you need to be doing this. You need to print your credit report. Okay. This is where you're going to start your money making journey, because a huge part and a huge foundation of your money making journey is to really master your credit. And then eventually you want to master your money. But here's where it starts. It starts at the very basic. Grab your report, print your credit report, and then print. Like when I say print, I mean like print it, have the paper, pen to paper, circle the negatives on your credit report, especially those of you that have a negative credit score, or I'm sorry, not a negative credit score, but a low subprime credit score. So you want to circle those reports, or you want to circle those negatives, and you want to circle, by the way, guys, I can help you dispute if you have any inquiries that didn't amount to any sort of account, you can actually dispute that. And this is a lot of data points I need to collect, and it needs to be a one-to-one. But in any case, once you print your report, you get into the habit of being aware, right? Remember, you got to have matrix like awareness. And when you get in the habit of really being aware about your credit and you circle those negative things, then you can go to work, and then you can dispute those things. Okay. Because you're not going to be able to dispute things you don't know about. So you need to know. Very simple, very easy to do, also very easy not to do. The fastest way to get a credit score boost is to lower the amount of revolving debt, AKA paying it down, which is generally credit cards that you're carrying. Ask for late payment forgiveness. If you have a late payment, did you know that you can pick up the phone and call the bank and negotiate with them? The bank just wants to hear from you that you're trying sometimes, especially when you get a really good human being on the other side. They really would love to help you, but they must hear from you. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think a lot of people have so much. Okay, when I say a lot of people, I mean like my old version. Guys, you always hear me talk about my old version. I try not to talk about anyone else but my old version. And when I was going through financial challenges, I felt like there was a lot of shame and guilt around it. And when you have a lot of shame and guilt around it, what happens is you don't want to talk to people because you think you're getting judged because you have sucky credit, or you don't have a good financial journey, or you haven't mastered money yet. Guys, the first step, remember, the first step to these things is really have an open line of communication with the banks. Ask for late payment forgiveness, and ask to negotiate all these things. Because sometimes you end up with a human that really appreciates that you are simply trying, and they just want to hear what your story is so they can make a business decision after hearing your story. Okay, dispute inaccurate information on your credit reports, which is why we need to circle those negative. And even when they're not negative and it's something you want to improve on, just like the utilization percentage of your credit, and you want to remain below 30%, you want to circle those, because what you want to improve upon needs to be either circled or highlighted. Get this, add utility and phone payments to your credit report. Did you know that you can actually boost your credit score by adding utility and telephone payments to your credit report? Guys, it's called credit boosts on Experian, and you can do this. But here's the downside of this. If you have a shutdown notice, or if you, and I know all of this, and you know why I know all of this, because I have been there. And I keep repeating myself when I'm talking about this because I want you to feel like you're not alone. We're just very different journey in our journey, right? Levels of our journey. But you're not alone. This is why I do what I do, because I have been there. Add your utility bills and phone payments to your credit report. The downside to this is if you have a shutdown notice or if you're late on your utilities, it can also affect you in a negative way. So be careful. Again, make sure that you don't add this unless you know you're always on time on your utility and phone payments and you have mastered the money game and the credit game. Okay, guys, this is the end of our training, but I want to tell you some housekeeping. Make sure you check the resources below in this video, which I always share some resources in addition to this training to give you guys even more value. If you're not yet inside the private Facebook group, please join us and really engage in there so you can post questions as they arise. Use it as a note-taking tool, right? If you remember something or something it's been burning inside of you and you really want to ask the question, don't be ashamed. There's no shame in your game. If those questions arise in between trainings every other week, make sure you post it in there. And then this is the last training that I'm doing weekly for November. Remember, I'm giving you a bonus for the month of November, and I'm doing trainings every single week. And then in December, we go back to our normal programming come December. But remember, here are some dates to remember, and I don't have it on the screen, but I need you to write this down. January 1st, you're going to get a Zoom. We're going to do live Zoom to toast the 2023 New Year. We're going to do our 90-day money-making challenge. Okay, prepare. Make sure you come prepared. Bring your own bubbly. We're going to toast the New Year's. Bring your own bubbly, and we're going to write it on the sand. What you really want to accomplish in the first 90 days of the year. But here's a kicker. Also remember, if you do not do the work, and that's the last bullet point here is do the work. If you don't do the work, we're going to create a catwalk for you on March 31st, and we are going to have you walk or have you do the walk of shame. And why do I do this? Guys, this is what accountability looks like. We're having so much fun. We're doing the work. And on March 31st, we are celebrating our wins, our achievements. And in those of you that didn't do the work, we are going to make it hurt. We're going to take a picture, okay? And we're going to have you do a speech of your excuses of how you didn't do the work. And then we're going to post you, I'm just joking. I'm not going to post you on social media unless you want me to. But it's going to be so much fun. We're going to have a really good community moving into 2023, but make sure that you post your wins and your success inside our Facebook groups, because that's how we know, right? We only do every other week training. Yes, we go on Clubhouse and have a conversation, but we don't really want people to know about what we're doing inside Kareen.club. We want to make sure that this is an exclusive space because we want to make sure that people that are in here are executors. They do the work and they make it happen. This is for all of us. As always, my name is Kareen Mills, your super host here in this Kareen.club, also an Airbnb super host. And you know my hashtag to mother the world. That is my vision of this world. Guys, you already know I'm a super host on Airbnb. If there is anything you need around the Airbnb space, if you want to go ahead and have some consultation or just a really initial consult about your Airbnb, if that's what you want, again, the resource to book a call with me is going to be right underneath this training. Thank you so much. This is another amazing training, and thanks for having me. I hope you learned something today. Make sure you do the work.